Hi, what's up? My name is Michael Nunez, and this is Technically Speaking, a show where we discuss the biggest tech news from the week. First up, Elon Musk reached a deal with the Securities Exchange Commission on Saturday after a controversial tweet he sent in early September. Here with me today is Jake Kroll, Mashable tech reporter, who has a little bit more information on the news story and can explain sort of how this all went down. So Jake, what the heck is going on with Elon Musk and the SEC, and how did this all come about?
Definitely. So it's kind of crazy. But back in August, Elon Musk sent a tweet out saying that he was taking Tesla private at $420 a share. But unfortunately, he didn't tell anybody at Tesla, shareholders, or most importantly, the SEC.
So the tweet itself was a surprise to everyone, is what you're saying?
Surprise to everyone.
Including
completely.
Federal regulators.
Yes, which is kind of an issue.
Okay, so then what happened?
So Tesla kind of had to backtrack and kind of, try to play it cool to some degree. They posted, it's not fully done yet. They're kind of beginning to see how it would look for the company, what private means, some more control. But they also had to send, the SEC some information. It turns out the price was wrong. It was supposed to be $419 a share, which Elon Musk charmingly said that he picked $420 to make his girlfriend at the time, Grimes, laugh. As well as kind of troll the media to some degree with the marijuana and weed reference.
Okay, interesting. So Elon says in a tweet that he wants to take Tesla private, and then he has to walk that back because it sounds like he just did this to impress his girlfriend, and not everything was quite lined up. Is that right?
Definitely.
And so why would Elon Musk want to take Tesla private in the first place?
So, for him, he's the creative engine, and it could help with production, theoretically. It could give him more control. He wouldn't have to answer to the public shareholders, or to, he kind of gets more control over it, point blank, and it could help, to put more money on production, spur more innovation if he wanted to. But the big deal is he can do whatever he wants, kind of that free-for-all mode if it does become private.
Interesting. And but it sounds like it's not going private, at least for the time being.
It is not.
And so what does that mean for Elon now? So he claims that he's going to take Tesla private for $420 per share. That was clearly some sort of fabrication, or maybe a little bit removed from the truth. Yeah. So the company remains public. Now what? Now what happens?
Yeah, so he has a big fine he has to pay.
How big is the fine?
$20 million.
$20 million.
3 years no longer being chairman.
Okay. Oh, so that's actually pretty significant. So he'll no longer be the chairman of Tesla for 3 years, plus a $30 million fine?
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. But I guess for a guy like Elon, who is supposedly worth over $1 billion, is $30 million really, does that really do anything?
It's a very small drop in the bucket. And
do you think is that a fair fine for this type of behavior?
I think any amount of fine with Elon kind of just proves the point that there's no repercussion big enough for him. So I don't think it's going to stop the behavior. It's kind of more a slap on the wrist. Please don't go tweeting without talking to regulators.
Interesting. And what about so what does Elon do from here? He was hit with this fine. Does that mean he now deletes his Twitter account, or what happens from here on out?
I don't think so. He kind of poked fun back at regulators by posting a video of OPP, which is other
people's property. So the OPP, the hip hop sensation from the 90s, that song, yeah?
Yeah, so he's kind of just like sticking his nose up to some degree back at these people. So I don't think he's quitting Twitter at all. I think he's still gonna make himself chuckle, I guess, and laugh. But I think for now, to kind of make shareholders happy, he still has to answer to them to some degree. At Tesla, they need to get the ball rolling in the right direction, get production up, and make some more revenue.
Interesting. Okay, so let me recap this really quick. So Elon sends a tweet out, says that he's going to take his company private for $420 a share. He then backtracks on that, later admits to federal regulators that he said he wanted to take his company private for $420 so that he could impress his girlfriend, Grimes, who's an indie pop star. And he gets fined by the SEC $20 million. He can no longer be chairman for 3 years. And then he still tweets yet again, thumbing his nose at federal regulators by sending them a video from Naughty by Nature the popular 90s band who sang the song OPP, which stands for Other People's Property. So he's still defiant, even after all of this.
Very much so. And it doesn't appear he's quitting Twitter.
Well, incredible. And do you have any advice for Elon or any final thoughts, I guess, on this?
I mean, it's tough. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of him after kind of all this stuff, but maybe, take a few days off Twitter. There's no reason to keep going at it so much with social media.
That seems like a very reasonable piece of advice. Thank you, Jake. So, in other tech news this week, we had more social media making waves. This time it wasn't Twitter, it was Facebook, who announced earlier this week that over 50 million users were part of a data breach, one of the largest in the company's 14-year history. So, Jake, can you tell us what happened in this big Facebook hack and why so many people are talking about it?
You got it. So it is Mark Zuckerberg and the crew at Facebook cannot catch a break. We had Cambridge Analytica already this year, and this, as you just said, it's a larger hack on every conceivable scale. So Facebook did notice a spike in users, and they linked that back to the View As feature, where on your profile you could see how I would see it, and people got token access, which is essentially the way that Facebook stays logged in, and your password.
And when you say people got token access, what does that mean? Who are these people? Who's behind this hack?
So Facebook is not entirely sure yet. They wouldn't confirm or deny, that it was like a group like Cambridge Analytica from another nation to some degree. But this group of hackers went in, got these tokens, and later revealed that it also gives you access to third-party apps. So it's not just your Facebook account, but it's also the apps you use to log into Facebook. So Spotify, Airbnb, dating apps like JSwipe, Tinder, all that stuff.
And so Facebook doesn't know who's behind these hacks? Did you say that?
They do not know who is behind the hacks as of yet, and they did their first call. And they announced it, saying 50 million people were definitely affected, potential 40 million others could be potentially affected. And then thanks to, some journalists on Twitter who realized, that there's that third-party login, they kind of backtracked again and said, we're not entirely sure. So they came clean quickly saying that there was a hack. But they're not entirely sure who's behind it yet or how far-stretching this is.
And so even if they don't know who the culprit is, who has access to these 50 million accounts, why would someone want access to these accounts? What's at risk here?
Yeah, so I mean, it's your Facebook account, so your personal information that's stored there, the apps you use to log in. So if you're downloading Spotify and you're signing in with Facebook, like many of us did, I think when it first rolled out, they potentially have access to your payment information now, because you can just log in with it and see it. And that goes for Airbnb. They could book a hotel and put it on your dime. So it's pretty big in terms of just the data, and just once again, Facebook has let users down to some degree.
Interesting. And I guess what is the next step for Facebook? It sounds like regulation could be on the way. So, why? It seems like every couple of months Facebook is announcing one of these big hacks, and it just seems to never end. So, when does the federal government step in, or when do regulators step into this equation? Do you sense that that's coming soon?
I think the wave is going to come crashing in soon. There's been some senators and congressmen and women who have been rumbling, saying now is the time for regulation. We've seen tech companies go as early as last week to testify. Sheryl Sandberg was there in regards to election meddling. GDPR in Europe is going to be pushing a fine. I believe it's either the 30 million or the 4% of the global revenue, which they're going to get hit with. So it's not the biggest hit to Facebook, but it's definitely going to probably send a shiver down the spine of their shareholders. And regulations needed to kind of protect, because as you said, how many hacks do we need before something is done?
Right. Okay. So it sounds like regulators in the U.S. have yet to really clamp down on the social media giant, but in the EU, at least from what you said, the GDPR is actually going to be applied to this particular case, and so Facebook will be hit with either a $23 million fine, which is which is the threshold for the minimum with which a company could be hit for not protecting user data, or 4% of global annual revenue, which would be $1.63 billion in the case of Facebook. So whichever is larger. So it sounds like in this case, Facebook will likely get hit with $1.63 billion fines in Europe for not protecting user data. Unfortunately, in the U.S., I guess our data is not worth nearly as much, at least according to regulators. So, so Jake, what is your takeaway from this story? What are users supposed to do, and how do we move forward from this hack?
So definitely, even if you weren't forced to be logged out of your account, go in, check what third parties have access to your apps. If you can, reset your password. Our intrepid reporter, Jack Morris, did a nice little how-to, so you guys can dive into that in a little more detail on the site. But definitely take precautions. Don't use the same password. Maybe don't log in with Facebook, even though it's the easiest way to get Spotify and, to log on to dating apps. I'm switching my password for a bunch of stuff right now. But just kind of be on the lookout for it.
So it sounds like, okay, so go to your Facebook securities settings and log out. It sounds like people should be logging out of any third-party apps that they're not using.
So you can actually go through and see every app that's connected to it. So I found some old ones that I didn't know.
Like what? Like give us some examples here.
I was still into Time Hop. Airbnb is on there. My Uber account started with Facebook, which I didn't realize.
And so the hackers potentially theoretically could access all of these different accounts, so just because they have your Facebook.
Yes, I mean, they could go and book an Airbnb. They could start calling Ubers in a different city, and because payment forms are linked to it, we'd get hit with the bill.
Incredible. So log out of those accounts if you're not using them, and also make sure that no other devices are connected to your account as well, because often people will switch cell phones and then they forget to deactivate the old cell phone. So. And all that's found in the Facebook security settings?
Yeah, so just click the little gear on the top right-hand corner and head over there, check it out. You can even log out of all website sessions, which is probably important if, you're logged in or using a public computer, because that access token, which is now out in the open, could still be there.
Okay, incredible. Thank you so much, Jake. And for our final segment this week, we wanted to do something fun. So we're taking a look back at classic consoles. Just a couple weeks ago, Sony announced that it was making a miniature version of the PlayStation. Yes. I think it's called the PlayStation Mini. Is that right?
PlayStation Classic.
PlayStation Classic, excuse me. And what it is a tiny version of the original PlayStation. It comes with full-size controllers. Yeah, and how many different games?
I believe it's over 20 titles.
Over 20 titles
that they've announced now.
And can you give us a couple of examples?
I believe Final Fantasy's on there. The original one.
Okay.
Which ironically is also available on some other platforms.
Okay.
I believe Crazy Taxi as well is on there.
Okay, Crazy Taxi and Final Fantasy. I can also add to that Parappa the Rapper, I know is on there, and Crash Bandicoot, a couple of other classics, Tomb Raider, that sort of thing. Okay, so a miniature version of the PlayStation is coming out. It has all of these cool games, Crash Bandicoot, Tomb Raider, etc. Jake, what is your opinion of why are all these consoles coming back? What's the deal with this?
90s nostalgia is the big deal, I think, for 2018.
Why? Why is everyone so connected to the 90s?
They just want to, have that memories of playing it, I think. Nintendo clearly had a hit with the NES Classic and the SNES Classic.
Great point. And for people that don't know what the NES Classic and SNES Classic is, can you explain what that is?
Yeah, definitely. So in a similar fashion to PlayStation, the NES Classic, came with around 20 titles as well, only one controller, so Nintendo was a little bit cheaper for that $60 price point, but it's basically an emulator. It's like a small little computer inside, and you can play those classic games. And it kind of brings back memories, I think, but it's also that you're paying a price to access these games officially, since there are emulators that you can download for free online. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of exciting. It got a huge draw, and I have a feeling, PlayStation will hopefully have their act together for supply and demand better, because, Nintendo had to re-release the NES Classic, I think, 3 times over.
Wow.
Most recently this past June, and it was kind of one of the highest grossing consoles, ironically enough.
Interesting. So last year, Nintendo releases a miniature version of its classic console. They sell out really quickly. They can't keep up with the demand, and Sony sees that and takes a cue from them and decides to release its own miniature console from the past recently. So heading into the holidays, Which of these do you want? Do you want the NES Classic, the SNES Classic, the PlayStation? Are you collecting them all? What's the deal?
I think I might try for the PlayStation. I do have an NES Classic that
okay.
I waited online for.
You also have a Tamagotchi, I noticed, which is
Yes.
also from the 90s.
Yeah.
So I feel like this is like kind of in the sweet spot for you.
It is. I'm pretty excited
retro
for
stuff.
it. I still want a Dreamcast Classic, which I don't think is going to come to play,
Wow.
Sonic and those classic titles, but I think Sony's going to have a hit on their hands easily. I mean, and if people can't get it, they'll be on eBay for hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Are you going to go for one?
No, I was never a PlayStation owner, never a PlayStation fan. The one I'm waiting for is the Nintendo 64 Mini. I think that will be the game changer. The rumor is that Nintendo's working on this and could release it before the end of the year. If they do, that's at the top of my wish list that I'm sending to Santa. So yeah, I guess I'm just kind of like, waiting with not waiting with bated breath, but waiting for this announcement, and hopefully it comes. If not, I think I'm pretty happy with my Switch. I don't think I need these retro consoles in my life. I'm trying to clear my house of clutter, rather than like adding all of this stuff. But I've seen your collection. I totally love it. Jake, do you have any final thoughts on the retro consoles for the people watching and listening?
I mean, I hope they keep coming. I'm still kind of hoping for a mini Game Boy to some degree.
Mini Game Boy. Didn't they make that years ago? It was like Game Boy Mini.
There was, but there was. Maybe like an emulator, though, or something could come. But I will say, I mean, I was kind of down on the dirt when I couldn't pick up an NES Classic Edition on launch day. So don't give up hope if you can't grab yourself a PlayStation Classic.
Because you were able to get one eventually.
I was eventually able to get one.
You got any tips for people on how to do that?
Definitely. Set up eBay watch alerts, but don't pay a ridiculous price for it.
Okay.
Unless you're the one selling it. So if you can get 2 of them, definitely sell it for a crazy price. But keep calling Targets or Best Buys in kind of less populated areas.
Okay.
And Amazon was how I got it. They had it on one of their treasure trucks.
Okay. So it sounds like there's a lot of options for people out there.
And yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, and I will advise save your money and get the Nintendo Mini Nintendo 64 Mini when it comes out, if it ever does. Okay. Well, that's it for this week. Join us again next time on Technically Speaking, where we'll be discussing more of the latest tech news.